Yeah, perfect. Hi everyone, and welcome to the UKAA and LMRE Living webinar on the growth of build to rent and the ever-expanding PropTech space. For those who have not met me or spoken with me, my name is Louisa Dickins, co-founder of LMRE and LMRE Living, and I'll be chairing this session. At LMRE, we recruit for build to rent operators, investments, platforms, and also the PropTechs of this space. And today we are fortunate enough to be joined by Demetrios Barnes, CEO of SmartRent, Costas Frangeskou, Director of Sales at Goodlord, and Sowgol Zarinchang, Managing Director of Way of Life. So welcome all of you. It's a pleasure to have you on the webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And also a big special thanks to Demetrios, who's joining us from the US, and it is 1:40 a.m. So I think that deserves a round of applause, because that is commitment. So thank you, Demetrios. I guess before we sort of kickstart the questions, I'll give you a brief introduction to each guest and their company so we're all sort of familiar. So let's kickstart with Costas from Goodlord. So Costas has over 15 years experience in the property industry. This includes over a decade with Rightmove, where he held several senior positions, including National Sales Director and Commercial Operations Director, overseeing sales, retention, and pricing operations. Since leaving Rightmove, he has consulted with several industry suppliers, now resides as Director of Sales at Goodlord, and is responsible for the business' continued growth. Now, Goodlord is the trusted partner to over 800 letting agencies, housing associations, and institutional brands across the UK. They provide the only end-to-end pre-tenancy software that encompasses referencing, compliance, insurance, and revenue and generating products all under one roof. So if you want to check it out, he'll be sharing how you can connect their business and him at the end. And now I would like to introduce the wonderful Sowgol, who's the Managing Director of Way of Life. As Managing Director of Way of Life, Sowgol oversees the quality of the Way of Life journey. She ensures that each customer experience a seamless process from the point of inquiry throughout their stay and until they move on to the next stage of their life. Way of Life is best-in-class rental accommodation across the UK, marketing, managing, and letting over 850 homes in central locations across the UK. The company makes the joys of central living a reality. Its buildings are designed to meet the varying needs of residents at all stages of life, offering a greater selection of choice as well as professional building management, providing a reliable and streamlined service. Now, a bit of background to Sowgol. Prior to joining Way of Life, Sowgol was Director of Service Apartments at JLL, where she managed operational activities and advised both residential and service apartment operators. She was previously Director of Private Rent and Student Lets at the Notting Hill Housing Trust, where she was responsible for leading 3 multidisciplinary teams with over 2,000 properties with an operational budget of 25 million, which is quite something. And she is also a member of the Women in Property and is on the PRS committee at the British Hospitality Association. And in 2019, Sowgol was selected as one of the 49 women who will shape the future of UK real estate by BuySnow. And so welcome, Sowgol, pleasure having you. And last but not least, I'd love to introduce our US friend, Demetrios Barnes, who is a co-founder and COO of SmartRent, where he heads up and he leads the support and marketing, field operations, and account services teams. With over a decade of experience in property management operations, he is passionate about helping owners and operators understand the innovations technology can produce, while forging strong interpersonal relationships and participating in thought leadership discussions. Now, prior to co-founding SmartRent, he was VP of Technology for Colony Starwood Homes, and previously Demetrios was Director of Property Management and Technology with Visa Pre-Owned Rental Homes, and a regional manager for several multifamily companies. Demetrios also holds a Bachelor of Science and BA in Business Administration from Arizona State University. And those who aren't yet familiar with SmartRent, I'm sure you will be in the months to come over here in the UK, SmartRent is an enterprise home automation company, developing software and hardware to help owners, property managers, and renters in the multifamily communities. They create multifamily technology solutions that provide property owners and managers a platform to better monitor and protect their assets and create operational efficiencies, all while driving additional revenue. So once again, thank you all for joining the webinar. Pleasure having you all on. And I guess after that introduction, it's time to kickstart with all the questions. So I guess we've seen a massive growth in the sector from investment, operations, and now an increase in sort of tech-enabled build to rent. A lot of people have raised questions about how do you get into the industry? You know, what skills should people be looking for? And what are the success stories of hiring managers and just various things surrounding the space. So I guess with that in mind, I'd love to hear from all of you about how you got into this space and talk to me about your journey, because you've all come from different areas. So yes, Sowgol, do you want to kickstart?
Yeah, thanks for the introduction. I was just thinking I will definitely hire myself with the PR piece that you've done for us. That's amazing. So I just entered the property sector by accident. My background is not property at all. So I've got a master's degree in sciences. I had an opportunity about 17 years ago to join a housing association and managing their temporary accommodation. So that was my introduction to property. But I guess from early days, I was very keen to know more about the properties. And each time I was buying a house, I always thinking about how can I improve it? How can I project manage it? So probably deep down, I had some maybe link to the property, but didn't know about that. So a housing association was my first probably experience into the housing, which has been fantastic. I've managed to grow my career in property by managing different assets, from temporary accommodation, being in charge of the policy and continuous improvement team, being part of a merging of two organizations together, and then managing the student accommodation, and also creating a folio London. So that is probably the seed that I've built into the build to rent. I think in terms of why build to rent, you probably need to think about your passion. And if you like to deal with customers, look after people, and making sure that you have, you know, a straight mind when you're, you know, putting a strategy together to grow something as well. So for me, I don't know how many of you are sharing the same view, that you're listening, but I cannot see you. But for me, it was quite accidental, but it was an enjoyable journey, and no regret whatsoever. So it's just that being committed and being able to learn and move on through the ladder.
What is it like moving from obviously the public to private sector as well? Because you work for, you know, Folio, Jane Sang.
Yeah, so I think there was an opportunity at JLL. It was a big move, as you mentioned it, Lisa, to go from a public sector to a private sector. And normally people are, I will say that people who are in a private sector bubble, they never look at hiring people from public sector, because there might be some wrong perception around them not being very commercially minded. So it was just based on networking with people, joining different committees, and that opened the door for me to join the JLL. And at the time, they were looking at someone who was basically sitting between the hotel industry and a residential industry to create a service apartment offering. So I've listened to what they had to say, look at the role profile, and just imagining myself doing that role. And I've joined them. It was more advisory role, and they were more keen about, you know, my operational background as well. So I've stayed there, gave my advice, but in reality, I was missing the operational side and getting my hands dirty. So that made me to move to a Long Harbour, which at that time they were looking at creating an in-house management platform. And that was something that I've done with the Folio London before. So it was a great opportunity to start something from scratch again.
Yeah, some great businesses to work for as well. I guess now, Costas, you know, you've been in, say, what we people call it like the PropTech world. You've been in sort of Rightmove, you moved to sort of Goodlord. Like, how did you transition into this space? What were you previously doing?
Sure. So I probably the avenue that I took in, I came from advertising. So before Rightmove, I was with Yellow Pages, for those that can still remember, are old enough. I was with Yellow Pages, and before then I was actually selling anything from stationery to postal systems into retail units and large companies. So the two really gelled well together when the opportunity came up. I was also looking to progress my career. I had a few tastes at management roles, and I wanted something to challenge me a bit more. And the timing of Rightmove was really good because they were looking to move into the lettings market. So in 2005, when I joined, Rightmove didn't even have a tab at the top of the search for lettings, if you can believe that now. So it was something that they needed to go into being pushed by our agents. And sort of the three things that I was looking for, which was I want to grow, I want a bigger challenge than I've ever had. I like selling into big companies as well as small one-man bands. And I was really passionate about advertising. If I'm honest, I was exceptionally lucky to join the right company at the right time. The benefit I've had in the PropTech centre, or in the PropTech world, property world, is that actually the benefit you get when you're at Rightmove is you get access to nearly every agent across the country. You get access to nearly every property across the country. You get access to some of the greatest minds and most passionate people in property. So most of my greatest ideas and things that I use today are usually stolen from people that I've met over the last 15. The benefit, one of the benefits you have as well when you're dealing with the whole of market in a way is you can see people's mistakes. You can also see what they're really successful at as well. So you can help others in not making the same mistakes, but you can also help others in guiding them in some of the things that you've learned through others. So that for me was a really good opportunity, and just became really passionate. I'm a landlord as well. I've bought and sold houses, so I'm passionate about property, as most people say they are. And that way I was able to sort of gel with the industry quite well, make lots of friends, and I have a passion to improve the industry. I think it's underestimated. It is a very regulated, very professional industry, but people don't really see that. And I'm definitely an advocate in how we can improve that and educate people a little bit more about actually the true value of what an agent or anyone else delivers to you. So yes, I've been really fortunate in terms of my journey since leaving Rightmove. As you mentioned, I've worked with other suppliers, helping them, and it's more about helping suppliers deliver a need in the market and how to position that need, rather than just to deliver a solution that they think might be a great idea. So yeah, I think I've been trained very well by a lot of the best agents in the country, where I now approach everything with those learnings. I sort of I'm on the side of the agent in the PropTech world, which is what I bring to it.
Yeah, we must know all the do's and don'ts of selling. So we have a lot to learn from you. And I guess how was the move from Rightmove to sort of Goodlord? Obviously, completely sort of different in size, businesses, and maybe culture.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm the oldest person at Goodlord, so that was a challenge in itself. But yeah, I think the thing I saw in Goodlord was what I saw at the beginning of Rightmove that I started to miss, and that was lots of young, enthusiastic people that were on the start of their journey but looking to go far. And that really excited me, because I've seen that before, and I've seen what you can do with that power. And it was the same thing that I could see straight away when I met the team at Goodlord, that these people are going to get there, and I want to be part of that journey as well. And in terms of the products as well, I worked for a number of other suppliers that I knew Goodlord quite well from the other side, because they were the ones that all the other suppliers were keeping an eye on and trying to in some way mimic. So when the opportunity came up and I knew how strong and how they were coming to market, it really sat well with my my ethics.
Well, congrats on the move. I'm seeing non-stop, I guess, hearing good things about Goodlord, the product, and the uptake it's having in the market as well. And I guess, Demetrios, you're probably nursing your second or third coffee, trying to sort of stay awake. And tell us about, I guess, your experience. You went from being a regional manager from like a massive multi-family to co-founding your own, prop tech business or home automation. How did you go about that? What was it like starting your own business?
Yeah, great question. And first off, I am sucking down some very strong coffee right now. Shout out to Sean in the chat. But yeah, it's, just listening to everybody. I was lucky, is the simplest way I know how to say that. I was in college. I was a bartender in the service and food industry. I was waiting some tables for some lovely ladies that just so happened to purchase a community near my college. And they said, hey, have you ever thought about getting in, leasing and property management? I said, I don't know what that is. Is that like, being an agent and, whatnot? And she smiled. She says, you have a great personality. You'll get a free apartment. So what, 18, 19-year-old that's off at college, if there's one thing they want is it's an apartment, right? It's somewhere to live and not have to worry about that. So that's really how I got in the business of property management. I definitely, share the stories of what Costas, referenced of just, the challenge, being a business student, at the time, just having the ability to own and inflict change and take care of people and deliver a good experience. When you get into the world of property management, these are communities. These are upwards of 1,000, 2,000 people at any given time, and this is their home. So, it was just a passionate experience for me, just wanting to help and just be a part of it. And it's a very an exciting, ever-growing industry. It changes regularly. I'd say in some cases it's a little behind the curve. Sometimes when I look across the aisle, especially in more of the higher, fast-paced hospitality world where you just have a higher turn. So a little bit behind the times in certain cases. And so when I think about the extremely blessed career that I had, being able to move up and work with really large organizations. Companies that ended up going into the public sector. Just I learned a lot. And that's the first thing that I could say is the amount of change and the amount of things that you're going to come across in this business are, college will never give you that experience. In cases, you could be 10, 20 years somewhere and not even come across as many different things as you see in the property side. So just going through that time for me was just really exciting. And I knew that I'd be there. I'd never leave this industry. I kind of thought to myself, why did I even go to school? Which I'm definitely advocating go to school, but I've still been in the industry and I've never left. And I'd also say, on the tech side of things, I'll pick up on Costas's last example. I am part of that newer, younger generation who just tech is all we know. And so I definitely didn't go to school for tech, but at a really young, early age, I was writing code and thinking about these things. And so just again, the opportunity to meet folks led me into a situation where I think about my other founders. Lucas Haldeman, our CEO, who's engaged with UKAA, a couple other guys, our chief product officer, our chief technology officer. We were at a company, what is now Invitation Homes, largest single family renter in the United States. We actually were out solving a problem, and the problem that we had managing single family homes at scale, and scale being about 100,000 units in 15 markets across the country. We knew that the problem we faced, unlike multifamily communities where units are all compacted into one space, we had to deal with land and how do I do things that, you know, at a site, you know, one entry-level person can do all of these things. Well, when you're thinking about that geography, you know, things are just, you know, all over and you really can't do it. So we decided to build some tech, leverage IoT, really just the very infancy of what IoT was in kind of the real estate space. And so it really just told us when things were happening or not happening, you know, not sophisticated, no AI, none of that. Just said, hey, you've got a problem here. Now it's time to go send somebody out. And we were blessed to see very quickly that, you know, there was a demand, there was a need, and we were solving actual problems. And so in 2017, we started SmartRent, and it has just been an awesome ride thus far. And these panels like this, where, you know, it's less about, you know, who we are and what we're trying to sell you. It's more about the thought leadership of various industries. It's 2 o'clock, 2:30 in the morning, and we're on a panel in the UK. So for me, you know, it's nothing short of just being absolutely lucky. But ultimately, it just never stopping and always dedicated to something, I think is just luck and hard work kind of get you there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting journey. I think one thing which sticks out from what you've all said is you have all got into certain spaces to streamline it, but also deliver a certain customer service. And, you know, it's that step up which everyone's looking for, whether you're like a tenant or agent or whatever it could be, which is obviously changing the industry. I think property management or agency was never so as sexy as it's ever been since sort of build to rent, PropTech enabled build to rent. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in the next sort of 5 years as well, and the different people that come into it. I guess now let's go for the next question. You know, since you've sort of each joined this space, I guess what big change have you seen in the market, and has it changed with, I guess, influx of people coming into it? Like, Sowgol, do you want to start? Because obviously you came from like a different angle as well.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, the sector is changing, and the perception around, you know, working in a property sector is changing. I don't think people were looking at a property sector as a career unless they had a property background. I think we're now opening that, you know, a venue for others to also join us. I definitely can see people who are passionate. They are very customer focused, and they're coming from a hospitality angle, is also joining the sector, which is great. I mean, you know, previously it was only retail and restaurants that when you used to go, like, you had to be like, the customers are right, no matter what. And I know that this is more US approach, but I think it's coming to UK. I can see that, and people are really caring about the service that they're providing. It's not the 9-to-5 job at all anymore. You are actually signing up to a 24/7 job when you're entering to a property sector. You want to make sure that you have a happy customer rather than ticking the box. You want to make sure that they stay with you longer than 12 months. You want to make sure that they value you and the service that you provide. So that's why I think it's not like, can they deal with the health and safety only? Can they be just a compliance person? Can they just, you know, have this type of qualification? I think what I can see, which I like, is that bringing people from different backgrounds and create a team that they can provide the best, you know, service to other customers. So I think COVID will also, I know that everybody's are nervous. There are lots of people who lost their job, either from an airline industry or from hospitality. The way that I look at it is that it might open up opportunity for people who never experienced property. But my advice will be that try to do some research around what you're signing up to, because the last thing you want is that you just look at the headlines when you join, and especially if they are newcomers or new organizations, there are lots of challenges to face. Things are not glorious from day one, and they expect you to work as a team to make it a success as well. But definitely changing, but probably for a right reason. And you know, I always say that you don't want to have exactly same people in your team, because you're not going to learn anything, you're not going to change anything. Let's bring someone else with a fresh pair of eyes. They look at things differently, so I might see it green and they might see it blue, because that's how their brain is operating.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say about obviously bringing people in from, say, airline industry, which has been pretty badly hit. We hired someone from British Airways called Georgia. She's actually gone off traveling, which was a big loss for us, but she gave this level of customer service, which is just, you can't train it. And I'm sure that's like for Costas, which when you're hiring someone like customer success management, or Sowgol for anyone who's working on your site, you can't teach it. You either have it and it's ingrained in you and you want to please and deliver a high standard. So yeah, I think I didn't even think about bringing people in for like airlines into BTR and PropTech, but that is definitely an angle we're going to go for.
Exactly. I think you need to be proud of what you're doing, and you need to think about that you have a transferable skills. You need to be able to manage your time. You need to be able to smile when you have a difficult day. You are facing your customers. You're not working in a kitchen that you can hide yourself and say, it doesn't matter how I look, or it doesn't matter how I feel, because you know you are part of someone's journey, and you will make it a good experience or a bad experience for them. Yeah,
and I guess Costas, from say Rightmove to Goodlord, obviously two very different products. What change have you seen in the market? Obviously, that PropTech has become more sort of saturated. Rightmove, from what? Do they hire sort of more people from, say, a traditional sort of residential agency background? You know, what sort of Goodlord's like angle as well? Like, what change have you seen?
Yeah, I think if we look at my journey and what I've learnt in terms of hiring, I think that the first part is really understanding what the actual role is. I think sometimes we merge success managers, account managers, salespeople, all into one kind of framework. And actually, there's lots of different levers that play a part in your hire. So one of the big differences, because you know people might look at Rightmove and Goodlord and say, well, they're both selling into agencies and housing associations and professional businesses, but it's both in the property market. Therefore, someone who's successful in one should absolutely be successful in the other. They have the contacts and everything else, but they're two very different businesses. Rightmove is an add-on. So you know we're selling advertising, which means that we are adding something into your current processes. They're just dialing up the volume of the amount of leads that you're getting, but your process stays the same. Therefore, how much industry knowledge do you need? A strong advertising background would be good, but obviously being very customer centric, caring, coming across in the right way, that is probably the most important things. Believing in what you're selling, being passionate about what you're selling. And one of the processes that we used at Rightmove was around in the interview stage was they had to actually do a presentation of something they were passionate about, because if they couldn't persuade us they were passionate about something they loved, we didn't want them selling the product. And that was brilliant. That really helped us decide who do we want representing us from that perspective. Goodlord is very different, because Goodlord is bringing in change. Goodlord is also, if you think of a business, we go across all the stakeholders. We affect everybody, from the negotiator, the administrator, the property manager, the lettings manager, the director, the owner of the business. We create a lot of change within the business. Good change, because obviously we are streamlining their processes. We're making it the experience for the tenant, the landlord, and the agent a much better experience. So because we're creating so much change, there is a need there for maybe someone to understand what it feels like to be a negotiator, what it feels like to be an administrator, what it feels like to be a property manager, and have just some understanding, not necessarily done that job themselves, but have some understanding of their challenges, their needs and their wants, so that you can make sure that you're a bit like a conductor. You're having to conduct a whole orchestra and make sure they're all on the same place at the same time. So I think from a Goodlord perspective, from a new sales point of view, from introducing our product into an agency or into a housing association, etc., we definitely look for someone that can align our product along with current processes. Then you also mentioned from an account management perspective, I would say I look at an account manager or a success manager at Goodlord very different to somebody who's selling in the product, because once you become a client of Goodlord, you've accepted that we're the experts in what we do, and therefore when you're looking at your success manager, your manager is there to make you successful in the product that we're delivering, and therefore their experience, their knowledge, their skill should be around the product we deliver, whereas the person introducing the product is trying to help you understand why change is a good thing, and change is probably the most difficult thing to deliver into a business.
Yeah, especially into real estate. The adoption's been slightly slower than other industries. And what's interesting from both Sowgol and Costas, you sort of, the real estate knowledge isn't like, it's a nice to have, but what I gather, it's not a necessity, which is very different to how real estate has always been. Demetrios, what's it like in the US? You know, how has the market sort of changed?
Yeah, definitely. You know, it's as I told you my story, I was a bartender, right? You know, getting into the space. So when I think of the property side, you know, and all the folks that we're helping, and how they're, you know, adapting and evolving their business, you know, it's just so customer focused. You know, I come back to the example that I gave earlier, but it's something that was really held true to me. And that is, again, someone's moving into a community, not because of a floor plan, not because the paint on the building, not because, well, maybe because you had an awesome move-in special, but there's very few reasons why they're moving in. And the biggest reason, truly, from my experience, is the team that is managing that community. That's why they're moving there. And if you evaluate, you know, renewal rates for tenants across these communities, the main reason why people leave or stay somehow relates to service every single time. 80+% of the time it's, you know, I'm getting terrible service or I'm getting fantastic service, and that's going to drive it. And you would think, hey, if I'm priced right, if I've got the newest countertops and fresh carpet for you, and the curbs are painted outside, this is a wonderful place to live. I've worked in some of the tougher places, you know, here in the city here in Phoenix, and the demographic from the lowest income to some of the highest income, the value is the exact same. So when you're thinking about on the property side, I don't know if I personally care where you come from. I think Costas said it beautifully. I think Sowgol said it perfectly. Do you have it or don't you? I don't really know if I care where your background is from. I'd argue that the industry is not that difficult. So it's really about, do you have the ability to make a connection with somebody? Now, when I translate, you know, that to the PropTech space, things get very interesting. You know, we are selling services, you know, to the property management space, to the real estate space. So when I think of the success managers and the trainers that we're hiring, that specific role, there's a nice, comforting feeling to have, to know that our trainers come from the world that, you know, that they're effectively talking to. You know, when we're out rolling out our services, our solution, a solution that didn't exist, you know, 3 to 5 years ago, I want our trainers and our success managers to be able to relate and say, Louisa, I know that you had to use a blue pin on that guest card because that's just the way that everyone told you to do it. But the world can be different now, right? And that's just that evolution and the education that really comes with, you know, bringing a new product to market. When I think of a startup company that we are over the last few years that's had excessive growth, too much growth. We really go into the hiring scheme with what 3 positions do you fit? Because it's a startup, and the reality is you're going to wear 7 to 10 hats, and so by the time that we get to a place where there's only 1 or 2 hats to wear, I want to start you off in a general place that makes sense for you. Again, I think Costas said earlier, whether it's account services, success management, training, there's certain criteria that fit all of those. Very different, each one of those pieces, and very different job functions, but the general mindset is there. But then again, on the flip side of that, I would say, we just promoted someone earlier this week into the product team that has no product experience whatsoever. Why was that such a crucial move for us? Again, as we're growing, the more I'm not talking to customers rolling out their services, who's probably architecting things with folks, we need people in our product team that understand the user better than the guy who was classically trained to build products, right? Yeah. And so when you find that marriage of here's my passion, here's what I was trained to do, versus you just have it, that's how we look at things. And I think kind of what's more recent for us, and Sowgol, I think you said this as well, is, when you're hiring, you really just go for your comfort zone and say, do you have the experience? I want that. In the US, property management degrees really didn't exist. They don't exist. They're starting to exist. And so I think that's a beautiful thing. But there's something to be said for just getting out there, committing to something, and just giving it your all. So that's kind of what I'm seeing. I think folks are now being trained in property management, which is a huge help. It's helping folks be prepared upon walking on site. But there's just no amount of schooling that can teach you customer service skills, passion, and the ability to connect with people.
And I think that just to add on that, if you look at the property sector and comparing us, let's say, with like a airline or the aviation, if you become an air crew, you will not be able to be a pilot, right? So you need to go back. But if you join the property sector and you got that passion and drive, the sky is the limit. You can go anywhere you want, and you can learn, from others. You can then start studying. So it's completely different. Like, you can do anything you want within, the property sector, which you might not be able to do it in other sectors. So I always keep saying, have the passionate, invest on yourself and invest on the team that you're working, and you will go places.
I guess for all of you, you've all done numerous sort of hires from, by the sounds of it, completely sort of different industries, and sounds like you're all open-minded, which is awesome to see. Can you just, where do you sort of see the skill shortages in the market? So if people are listening in, what do they need to really build on? Obviously, customer service is one of them, and understanding people. Like, what skill should they boost? And I guess for hiring managers listening in, is there any sort of success stories you'd use, like, for them to learn from when they're hiring themselves? So, do you want to kickstart?
I think it's you asked 2 questions here, which was, one is that if somebody is listening and they're hiring, what type of people they should hire, and if there are any like success stories that I'm happy to share. What I will say is that when you hiring someone, obviously either you have that position available and somebody left, or you're just creating it from the beginning. So if you're just creating a job, always think about how can you make that person excited about the role? How can you give them responsibility and ownership rather than they constantly need to come and check with you? So I think that's the first thing if you're creating a job from scratch. if the role was there and there was some lesson learned from it, then make sure that you are, you know, you learn those lessons, and you know, you make sure that you're giving every opportunity to the next person to succeed. I always look at, we have few responsibilities. We have responsibility towards investors because they're investing with us and they are requiring that return on investment. We have responsibility towards our customers. So they're looking at someone who's passionate, understandable, available when they need it. And sometimes I think you get a call from a customers and they think this is urgent and emergency from their point of view. And when you sit back and say, it's not really urgent, but to them it is, and we need to understand and make a difference to their lives. And you also got the responsibility towards the team that you're recruiting a new member to, because they are becoming one unit, and each time somebody is joining, they are somehow disruptor to how people used to operate before, and bringing them on board. It's probably going to take a month or 3 months, depends on, you know, their notice period. And people are trying really hard to close the gap. So as soon as you say, I've hired someone, somebody's coming on board, everybody's thinking that you made the right decision. Someone will come and, you know, help the team and shape the business. So I keep saying about the passionate, but you just need to make sure that when you're hiring, you're clear about what value they're adding. It's really nice to ask them that, you know, how do you think you can make a difference to the organization? How much do you know about us? Have you done enough research before you sign the contract as well? And be very open and honest about all the challenges that they might be facing. It's not about scaring the candidate, it's about preparing them and setting the expectation as well. And just look and see, are they fitting to your culture? Are they going to be a right person to join your crew? And are they also looking at you as they're part of their family? Can you see that as well? And I know it's so easy Lisa, I've managed a person who was like close to the retirement. I was very young. There was a huge gap between us. And it is challenging for young managers to manage someone who probably don't have that much ambitions. They're at the end of their journey. And I used to put training plans and, team events and teamworks together. And he just came to my, office and said, Sowgol, I'm nearly 63. Okay. I will not be able to jump up and down with the rest. And I just said, that's absolutely fine, because what you can actually give to the team or how you can support the team is to pass your knowledge to the rest. So when you're leaving, then people are in a comfortable zone. I'm not expecting everyone to have the same level of passion. Otherwise, I'm going to struggle to create that opportunity for them. And I think the last point I would say is that when people are leaving your organization, you need to make sure that you've done absolutely everything to grow them and nourish them. So they're moving for a right reason, because they actually hit the top ceiling and they need to go somewhere else, rather than they really don't like waking up on Monday morning and coming to the office, which is demotivating.
Yeah, I think you talk about sort of culture and like sort of right values. Costas, for you, obviously, when you're bringing people, whether it was to Rightmove, which is obviously a much larger business, like we said earlier, to sort of Goodlord, and the same thing with SmartRent, Demetrios. It's when you're hiring, it must be right. You're coming in, if you're drawing them from different, like a larger company, a different sort of industry, it must be sort of setting the scene like, this is how we sort of operate, can be fairly unstructured, are you sort of up for the challenge? Like, Costas, have you got any maybe tips or even a success story for during various hires you've made in those businesses?
Yeah, I think it was a great answer by Sowgol. Well done. I'm going to steal most of that. But yeah, I think the key is going back to hiring managers. You're not hiring a person to do that job. A hiring manager you know, at the bottom level all the way up to your board of directors, you should approach it in the same way. The way that you look at your board of directors is what's missing from the room. Okay, no one will ever have all the answers. Your hiring manager, your boss, the boss of the hiring manager doesn't have all the answers. And actually what they should be doing in their hiring is looking at, okay, what's missing from my team? Because one person won't have all the answers, but if you can create a team where all the answers are in the room, you then start creating an exceptional team. And that would be advice I give. Look at your team. If there was one thing you could bring in, what would it be? And that should be the focus for that person, because you can train skills, but you know, behaviors are something that come with you. And I think from my perspective, behaviors is the most important thing for me. That comes before anything else when I'm hiring somebody, where those behaviors match what the business is looking for, and hopefully as I'm part of the business, they're very similar to mine. Therefore, are they going to gel well with the rest of the business and help the business grow and be really successful? So in terms of, if I look at the people that have been really successful for me, they're probably, one particular person comes to mind, and actually at the end of the interview, there's the panel of 3 of us, and the other 2 said we can't bring them on. They're too young. They're about 8 years younger than anybody else in the business. They're far too young. They've got no experience or anything else. But he had desire, he had drive, he had push. You could see that he was a rocket just waiting to be lit. He just wanted the right person. He couldn't find the right person to light the match. And I took a punt, and he brought so much energy to the team. And he made a positive change to every single person in that team. And now he's running his own successful business because he had that. But that was something within the team I didn't have. I had lots of other great skills and great people, but that was my missing ingredient. And that made a huge difference.
Yeah, and you got to grow, and kind of like what Sowgol was sort of saying about growing an individual to their sort of, I guess, max capacity. I guess, Demetrios, what about on your side? You know, what have you learned from running, you know, being part of, you know, a multifamily regional manager to, you know, hiring someone for a startup business? I mean, they're like polar opposite worlds. What do's and don'ts have you got for everyone listening?
Yeah, definitely. I will have to say I have to stop going after Sowgol and Costas because they just are killing all of the answers. It's hard to follow. But you know, really a lot of the same. You know, when I think Sowgol, I love how you bifurcated the two. You know, when I'm thinking about hiring an existing role that already exists, you know, I talked about earlier, you know, in the startup culture, do you fit 5 or 6 roles? Okay, you're a go. But when we're at now down to 1 or 2 hats that you need to wear, man, it just hit home what you said, Sowgol. I can't tell you how many folks I've hired where with proper expectation setting is the absolute key to bringing on people to your team. I'm very proud of this stat myself. Over my career, I've lost maybe a handful of folks, and I'm proud of that. And that's because expectation setting is absolutely key. When you're meeting with folks and you scare them, I'm going to go against what Sowgol said there. I believe that there is a level to, at least in the property management business, every day is different. Every day is every hour is extremely different. Friday is very different than a Monday. So, you know, there is a level to, you know, making folks understand that, you know, this isn't, you know, a checklist you're going to follow Monday through Friday, turn it in at the end of the week and, you know, get a good scorecard. And now you've gotten your bonus at the end of the year. It just doesn't work like that. So I can't agree, you know, more with that comment. I think it's exactly right. You have to scare them. Maybe you have to set that right expectation so folks understand what they're getting themselves into. And I'm gonna tie this next piece into the PropTech and the startup world that I think is very similar to both. Is as a hiring manager, I don't like to talk about the company too much. If I'm the one talking about the company, and if I've spoken for 15 minutes in the first 17 minutes, you're probably not going to come on board for us. And because that means that this is just a job to you. That means that you've applied to, more than a handful of places. That means that you are just taking shots in the dark to just see what lands. I'm not saying that you won't find a great candidate in that sense, but if we're on the Forbes top 20 startup lists and we're one of the fastest growing companies in Phoenix, Arizona, and you're sitting in front of me saying, yeah, I like what you guys do here. This looks pretty
Love
cool.
The breakout area.
This isn't going to be a good fit.
Yeah.
So, there are ways to quickly understand passion. Costas, I love your example of, sell me something that you're passionate about. On the flip side, and I go back to hiring for roles that exist, I'm a fan of the pen test or the tissue box test, where grab the simple black pen on the table and show me that enthusiasm. So again, I think it's a great cross between expectations and really seeing how much did that person find out about your company before they walked in that door. And if you're leading the conversation, it's probably not going to be a good fit for you.
Yeah. As a recruiter, I can only give so much prep, and it's just the basic principles. It's obviously there's a job spec, but you need to do your background research. You need to understand, who's the crowd you're obviously selling yourself to, and learn about the business, which should be pretty effortless if you want the job. We've barely, which I'm kind of happy about, we've barely touched upon COVID, which, it's spoken about a lot. I'm hoping both our industry, are getting through it. Well, I guess there's going to be, sadly, a lot of high unemployment. It's now turned from a candidate-led market, which I kind of, to a client-led market. Well, I guess from all your different angles, what trends do you see sort of post-COVID for your industries, from the traditional sort of build to rent to the, tech-enabled build to rent? So would you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. I mean, in terms of the recruitment, since COVID, we were not in a process of recruiting new staff members. So we're going to start recruitment in about a few months' time for the new schemes that we're bringing on board in London. But in terms of the PropTech, I must say that I was very lucky to have one of those ambitious person in my team to drive us. So what I will call is that our PropTech agenda was signed by our COO rather than, COVID, because I could see some people were just panicking to get the PropTech in place after COVID. I think we were very clear about that. We don't want people to sit and deal with the spreadsheets. We want them to, focus their efforts on providing a good service. And it actually paid off for us before COVID, and exceptionally well during COVID. So as soon as they said it's a lockdown, it was just a matter of taking over laptops and start working from home. So I think that is a significant achievement. And I think we should be proud of that, investment paid off. And we were also able to prove it to senior members and the board members. As soon as you say, I need this amount of money to, implement a new kit, everybody's looking and say, oh, what's the value? What value are you adding by doing this? I think COVID was a good alarm bell to say, like, you need to be able to work no matter what and where as well. So I think PropTech definitely been a great plus. We're constantly looking, exploring different options. And I think I must say that we're lucky because the person who's also in charge of the technology is sitting very closely with the operational team. So they understand the challenges and the frustration from the customer point of view and from the operational side of things as well. So going forward, I think that in terms of the recruitment, we will definitely see different people coming to the sector. We need to be open-minded about, you know, it doesn't matter if they don't have the property background, is that what they bring as a value to the organization. In terms of the PropTech, I think we need to just learn from what we were missing during the COVID and enhance our technology.
Yeah, I guess on Costas and Demetrios side, we want the more adoption of technology in real estate, the better. And everyone's talking about how COVID is pushing forward digitalization. So, like, I guess Costas, from your stance, what do you sort of see coming up? You know, what do you have ahead?
Yeah, so I think what COVID's done is test everybody's business on how flexible they are. At what point do you break, or does the elastic band break? I think we were quite fortunate that as a business we were in a strong position. People were working off laptops already, and people could work from home on the odd day here or there. So the change for us, although was dramatic from a normal point of view, it was something that I think we managed quite well. I think one of the things that we noticed very much was obviously going back to agents, and it's a traditional model, and it's been working for most, it's been working the same for 100 years. All that's changed is the chalkboard has turned into the internet. And I think one of the things that we definitely we saw, so in the first month, we saw that our agents, but even our prospects, were struggling. They didn't know what to do, where to go. There was lots of opinions. They were going on lots of webinars and having lots of experts that have never done it or have been through it, telling them exactly what they need to do. So we made a decision as a business for stop selling, stop account managing, where it may be. And actually what we did was we phoned all our prospects, we phoned all our customers and said, look, we've been used to working from home for a little while. Can we share some of the things that we think work really well for us? And we talked about things such as, you've got a whiteboard on your office. And then when you come into the office, everyone looks at the whiteboard to see how things are moving. What are you doing now? Oh, I don't know. It's on 600 different emails going across the business. So it was like, okay, have you thought about using things like Trello that would help you and give that same visibility? It's an online whiteboard. We talked about how, from a management perspective, how we manage our teams remotely, and some of the sort of do's and don'ts that we've learnt, and how you can keep people motivated. And so we spent the first month actually saying, okay, all we're going to do is pick up the phone, ask people if they're okay, and say, by the way, what are you struggling with at the moment? If you're struggling to manage your team from home or to get your systems in place, is there something we can help with, or something we could suggest? Because we've been doing it for 5 years plus. I think from the market perspective, if I can say it, we benefited slightly from this, because what's actually happened is a lot of decision makers now have had to furlough so much staff that they've had to actually, probably for the first time for some of them, use the systems that they bought and have seen for the first time. Do they actually deliver what I've been paying for this system for 5-6 years? Does it actually do what I bought? No. When did that stop? Well, it never actually happened to begin with. And so when we're actually having conversations now with decision makers, with business owners, the conversations seem to be much better, because they have a better understanding of how their business currently functions. They've now seen that they need to be more flexible. They need to open themselves more to tech, but not go too far, because it's still a people business, and people still buy it. It's an emotional business, and that shouldn't change, and tech can't replace the emotion. So I think what the change that I've seen is that I think moving forward, I think agency will be more open to understanding what they don't know, and make a decision on what you don't know, rather than saying, I know it's a no. Yeah.
Well, that can only mean hopefully good news. And I guess, Demetrios, in the sort of built around, I guess, multifamily space over the US and general technology, I would like to, I kind of think the US is a few years ahead of us, maybe. What does the sort of future look like for your US, for, I guess, your business and like the US market? Is it different to what we're experiencing over here? Do you think there'll be even further uptake in technology? What do you predict?
Absolutely. I've had 2 panels throughout this, I guess yesterday now, really speaking about COVID and where we're going and how we're changing. I I hate to say the words that Costas just said here, but it's been great for us, COVID. You know, when I think of the decision makers in the room who we've been educating and been talking about things for years are saying, you know, prior to March 5th, 6th, you know, it was, yeah, you know, we see it coming, you know, we don't want to be emerging leaders in this. And you know, we're saying, hey, no, people are doing this. We're rolling out hundreds of thousands of units. You have to do this. It's time. You know, those folks who were just on the fence, you know, man, you know, end of March are saying, how come you can't install? Why isn't this moving faster? I need this right now. So, you know, when I think of that, the demand for tech, the demand was always there. The decision makers are making decisions.
Yeah.
Simply put, right? So from that aspect, it's been phenomenal. When I think of the site teams for our clients, the reason why they're so excited to move, maybe not excited to move, desperate to move, is because now more than ever, the pandemic is a pandemic that is challenging the way this industry has ran for decades. And that is, it's a high touch environment. Keyword touch. So we're in a pandemic where they don't want you to touch. So, you know, those site teams are trying to figure out, how do I deliver the experience? How do I, you know, pass off this newly renovated asset to a new purchaser, a new renter? How do I do this? Also, how do I keep up with the newer renters that are coming on board, right? Every year you get a new slew of 18-year-olds who are now entering, you know, the real world, and they need a place to live. Those demands are changing by the second. You know, here, and I'm unsure if this example is pertinent to the UK or overseas, but we have a car company here. It's a new tech, you know, car dealership, and they serve cars through vending machines. I can't tell you how many of my, you know, collegiate buddies or my siblings' friends, you know, are on social media buying their first car through a vending machine. And what was so cool about this experience, outside of it coming from a vending machine, is it didn't have to talk to anyone.
What's it called? I've never heard. Like, I'm intrigued.
Yeah. So the company is called Carvana, and I'll type that in the chat for everybody. You can look it up, but just the concept for this younger generation of saying, I want things on my time. I want to do it when I can. My schedule is more busy than I ever have. So I might want to go look at a new home or a new unit at 3 o'clock in the morning. Well, you know, tech allows folks to do that. You know, one of the trends that we saw, we thought, oh man, more tours or things were going to happen on the weekend. We were wrong. They're happening before and after work. And why are they happening before and after work, or during the day more than ever? Because people are home now. More workers are home. So they finish up this project. They know they've got an hour, you know, until their next Zoom call. So I'm going to pop over to the community down the road, and I'm going to go check that out on my own. And I don't need anyone to help me do that. So from the tech perspective, the demand is coming. It's there. You know, our inquiries went up over 600% from the beginning of March until April. So, you know, there is nothing but demand now more than ever. On the other side to that, you know, when I think about how are we handling things post-COVID, you know, it's interesting. We're a tech company. Costas said it best. You know, when things happened, everyone picked up a laptop, went home, started working. Arguably, we were more productive tenfold within 24 hours. I mean, you know, it was interesting to notice how much more effective our collaboration was from home or on a Zoom meeting. It was for me, who's a little bit more social, and sadly I don't do too many things in an office anymore. It's me kind of looking at other people and forcing them to do things. So that for me, on the contrary, happened where I kind of had to find a new sense of how do I manage now, right? And I think Costas brought that up as well. So that's been one of our biggest changes. But one thing that I'm really excited about, this is really telling every business owner out there that who is stuck in an old way of thinking that you had to come into an office. I think that perception has just been shattered. And what makes me so happy is now we can start to offer, jobs to folks all across the country. As I build out my support team reps, I don't have to worry about, hey, can you have an hour commute to make it into the office to get here by 8 a.m.? Now you can be, in the UK taking support calls overnight for us, and that's just amazing. We now have the technology to say, Louisa, you've been at your computer and you've been online for 70% of your day. I'm okay with that because in the office, you probably were only at your computer 50% of the day.
So, talking to the team for 50%.
Yeah. So that's where I see the change, on both, our client side, but respectively how we're dealing with things.
Yeah. Well, I'm really conscious of timing, but it sounds like the build to rent space and the PropTech space is probably, hopefully one of the most resilient industries sort of out there. And obviously with the unemployment redundancies going out, how you can sort of attract all these people from various industries into it should be really exciting. And we're all talking about sort of diversity, we're all talking about innovation, and that's how we're going to achieve it through different sort of, thought processes. Obviously, like I said, I think Nick probably run a bit over the time, but I really want to thank all of you, Sowgol, Costas, Demetrios, for joining us, and obviously big thanks to UKAA. Just before we go, Sowgol, Costas, Demetrios, please let the listeners know how they could connect with you. Sowgol, would you like to go first?
Of course, it's so easy to connect with me. It's Sowgol, which is my first name, @wayoflife.com. So I'm also mentoring as part of the crew UK. So I'm more than happy to have informal chat with people if they are, in a stage in their career that they really don't know what they want to do, and if it's the right time for them, to move or make some decisions in their personal life. More than happy to be your friend.
Awesome. And Costas?
Well, I also benefit from having one of those names that if you look for me on LinkedIn, I'm very easy to find. But in terms of reaching out to us, my email is costas@goodlord.co. Our website is goodlord.co. And as Sowgol said, I do mentor a few people, but if anybody is thinking about the space, don't be frightened by the word PropTech. It's just a word. If you think you can bring good service levels and good skills into this marketplace, then please let us know, and we'll help you along the way.
Awesome. And Demetrios?
Absolutely, thank you. Demetrios at SmartRent.com, LinkedIn. Somebody somewhere will find me and I will talk to you. At the end of the day, it's all about education, and however I can share what I've been a part of, or someone I've known, or if I can steal Costas' story and tell you about it, I will. So please reach out any way possible. Would love to just talk. Like Sowgol said, love to engage with anyone about almost anything.
Awesome. And I guess on my side, it's been a pleasure, hearing from all of you. Those who are listening, if you need help on hiring into sort of build to rent space, from operating, investment to the PropTech, that's what LMRE and LMRE Living does in the US and UK and Europe. And also going to just launch a podcast called The Propcast. You could probably guess what it's about. And we'll be doing a 3-part series with the UKAA about tech-enabled build to rent, operating and investment, speaking to founders, managing directors from I guess, all parts of the world about how it's changing and future-proofing it as well. So please get in touch with me on the website or LinkedIn. And yeah, I guess thank you all for joining.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.